Okay, welcome back to part 3 as we continue with the Montgomery bus boycott.
The one-day boycott was a success. That night, a mobilized black community turned out for a meeting at the Holt Street Baptist Church and voted unanimously to continue the boycott.
The preachers were preaching as I came in. I was about 2 minutes late coming in, and they were preaching. And that audience was so on fire that the preacher would get up and say, "Do you want your freedom?" And they'd say, "Yeah, well, I want my freedom. Are you for what we're doing?" "Yeah, go ahead, go ahead."
Overwhelmingly, I don't know if there was one vote that said, "No, don't continue." The people wanted to continue that boycott. They had been touched by the persecution, the humiliation that many of them had endured on buses, and they voted for it unanimously, and that meant thousands of people.
You see, when I first started fighting, I was fighting to keep so that the children who came behind me wouldn't suffer the same thing I suffered. Then the night of the bus boycott on December the 5th, I told the people that I had been fighting like that for all these years. I said, the night I changed my mind, I said, hell, I want to enjoy some of this stuff myself. And then you ought to hear people holler.
The keynote speaker at Holt Street Church was a new preacher in town, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. He was only 26 and was almost unknown outside his own congregation. King wasn't sure he should accept when his fellow ministers and other leaders asked him to head the new Montgomery Improvement Association and the boycott. But they wanted him in part because he was new in Montgomery.
Reverend King was a young man, very intelligent young man. He had not been here long enough for the city fathers to put their hand on him.
Martin said, well, I'm not sure I'm the best person for this position since I'm new in the community. And but if no one else is going to serve, someone has to do it, and I'd be glad to try to do it. And of course, I guess everybody then assured him they wanted him. So he came home very excited about the fact that he had to give the keynote speech that night at mass meeting. He only had 20 minutes to prepare his speech.
We, the disinherited of this land, we who have been oppressed so long, are tired of going through the long night of captivity. Now we are reaching out for the daybreak of freedom and justice and equality.
Okay, so again, why is King chosen to lead the Montgomery Improvement Authority? Okay, what's important about that? And it's very important for you to understand why King gets it, because this is King's first start. Everybody thinks of Dr. Martin Luther King as the civil rights leader, and yes, the man has a tremendous role in changing civil rights. This is the first opportunity. Why? Why here in Montgomery does he get this opportunity? Think about that and talk for a few minutes, and then when you're ready, start the video again. Okay, so let's continue and listen to how the process moves along.
It was really surprising because we thought, well, maybe some of the people would continue to ride the bus. But after all, they had been mistreated in so many different ways until I guess they were tired and they just decided that they just wouldn't ride.
The black community was inspired by its own success. They held meetings with the mayor and the bus company and found they could stand up to the city commissioners.
At first, we didn't even ask for desegregation. We only asked for a more humane system of segregation on the buses. And when the opposition refused to grant that, then we realized that they wouldn't grant anything anyway. So we might as well ask for, complete desegregation. And that's what we went for. And we realized we had to go for broke, so to speak.
By this time, the boycott had lasted longer than anyone expected. A wave of violence started. Shots fired at buses. Bombs thrown at Martin King's home and Edie Nixon's home.
You've had some rather personal and trying experiences yourself. Are you afraid?
No, I'm not. My attitude is that this is a great cause, it is a great issue that we are confronted with, and that the consequences for my personal life are not particularly important. It is the triumph of the cause that I'm concerned about. And I have always felt that ultimately along the way of life, an individual must stand up and be counted and be willing to face the consequences, whatever they are. And if he is filled with fear, he cannot do it.
We thought that...
Okay, so why is it becoming violent? What's taking place now that's changing things? Take a moment to talk about it and start up again when you're done. Okay, so let's move on. We will see what the white community does to really try to organize and to stop the boycott by the black community.
You are not going to permit the NAACP to control your state.
As the boycott entered its second month, the white community's position hardened. There were whites who were sympathetic to the boycott, but many more were not. A segregationist group called the White Citizens Council held huge rallies and vastly increased its membership, becoming the largest organization in white Montgomery. They targeted anyone, black or white, who supported desegregation.
90% of the white people in Alabama are for segregation, but in the last few years we have had quite a number of backsliders, you might say, that for political reasons, to further their political ambitions, have been trying to garner the Negro vote and would do most anything to get that vote. The Citizens Council is out to utterly destroy those people.
The thing that kept the whites going was segregation, was the old way. Don't break the old way. Don't break this fabric. Don't break down segregation. Don't take this away, this old South. Don't take back the things that we've always known, and that we fought a war over these things, and that our forefathers would have us do this.
Despite the pressure, the buses remained empty.
Okay, so the White Citizens Council is very critical in terms of hardening the white vote and preventing anything from going further. Okay, so listen on as we move forward.
The black leaders decided the boycott might weaken if they didn't respond quickly to the violence. They filed suit in federal court, claiming that bus segregation was unconstitutional. White officials retaliated by indicting almost 90 black leaders under an old anti-boycott law. The tactic backfired. Suddenly, the national press was very interested in the story, and in the eloquent Martin Luther King Jr.
We still feel that we are right and that we stand within our constitutional rights in the protest. And we still advocate nonviolence, passive resistance, and still determined to use the weapon of love.
Jesus is with me. All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. Where does King get his nonviolence from? What is in his background? Where does he come up with this idea of nonviolence? And what happened as a result of the arrests that was similar to what happened in the Emmett Till case that brings this to the national front? Talk about that within your groups for a minute. When you're done, we will continue. Okay, so let's move along further. And of course, what good protest in the South against segregation and for civil rights would be complete without the Ku Klux Klan? So enter the Ku Klux Klan.
The boycotts hurt the bus companies, businesses, and the cities. It was not clear if they could end segregation. September 1956, 9 months. The Klan in Montgomery held a series of highly visible rallies.
They want to throw white children and colored children into the melting pot of integration, throughout of which will come a conglomerated, mulatto, mongrel class of people. Both races will be destroyed in such a movement.
Many in the black community were frightened, but they kept walking. 10 months, 11 months. The boycott's second Christmas was approaching. Downtown stores were hurt, but neither the city nor the marchers would compromise. On November 13th, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court broke the deadlock, ruling unanimously that Montgomery's bus segregation was unconstitutional. That day, the Ku Klux Klan rode and walked the black neighborhoods again. This time, the blacks just watched, unmoved and unafraid.
I wonder if the guy in the costume felt he looked as silly as he does look. Okay, so now you have an understanding of what takes place in the Montgomery bus boycott. I hope when you read through some of the pieces, the articles from the New York Times explaining how the boycott ends, and then last but not least was the flyer that was handed out to blacks in Montgomery about how to behave when they rode the buses again. All right? So if you still have time left, I don't know how much time you'd have by now, feel free to talk about that. If not, please make sure you understand both of these topics so that we can review them quickly when I get back and we'll move forward, okay? Tomorrow we will discuss, or you guys will be talking about Little Rock, Arkansas, and Brown versus Board. So please make sure you are up to speed on the Brown v. Board case. Yes, I know everybody says it ends separate but equal. There's a lot going on in that case. So it would be very helpful if you had a good understanding of that before we move on. All right, talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.